My research area is in the area of health communication, but I've been teaching media laws and ethics for quite some time. And what I would be presenting today is largely to do with the existing ethical concerns in the Indian media. And most of the problems which I would be talking about shortly, the solutions were, spoken about by Professor Bahia Omaz in her first talk. So moving on, I'd like to start off with the definition of media ethics, but I'm going to keep it really fast. So media ethics, it's a very crucial area. So I have to begin with the definition so that even if you're hungry, I hope you take something from the definition. Media ethics is a crucial field of applied ethics that encompasses the moral principles guiding journalism, public relations, media marketing, and entertainment. Ethical issues in media involve questions related to transparency, privacy, harm minimization, conflict of interest, graphic content, and the evolving role of media technology like the AI. Right. These ethical dilemmas shape the behavior of journalists, PR professionals, advertisers, and digital media creators, and all of this influences the public interest, public trust in media institutions. So I'm not going to go into the role of media. All of you are aware of the role of media, which is, the watchdog, and it's the fourth pillar of the society and leads to, mobilizing public opinion and so on and so forth. But the ethical practices in journalism is absolutely important and plays a fundamental role in ensuring fairness, accuracy, and impartiality in reporting. However, this role is increasingly being challenged. I'm sure you've heard enough about it. Misinformation, sensationalism, and corporate political influence. This is also because of today's media scenario where you have social media and 24-hour news cycles which dominate, and hence the media's ethical responsibilities have become more complex. Ethical violations can create widespread consequences, which we have already seen in terms of, what happens to public perceptions, leading to, influencing elections and even inciting social unrest. So there are several ethical challenges affecting journalism. I'm going to jump that slide because apart from all of these, transparency, truth-telling, harm minimization, privacy concerns, and conflict of interest, you have other things which definitely needs dwelling into. Not that the previous slide is not important, but we've heard enough about that, and I'm sure you're aware of it. And so is the case with problems like sensationalism and TRP-driven journalism. Think of a most talked about and heard about example of Sushant Singh Rajput. How the media discussed the tragic demise of Sushant Singh Rajput, and where certain channels conducted intense media trials, spreading conspiracy theories and violating privacy of immediate family. This particular case demonstrated media's unethical tendency to presume guilt, exploit public sentiment, and use unverified sources for higher engagement, audience engagement. This is one example. I'm sure you're aware of, plenty of examples which can be, which could come to your mind when you talk about media trials. Fake news and disinformation and misinformation. Disinformation and misinformation are among the biggest ethical threats to modern media. The digital era has made it easier for false narratives to spread rapidly via social media platforms like WhatsApp, Twitter, and Facebook, often leading to a lot of real-world consequences. For example, I think the most common example that you can think in terms of misinformation, disinformation was during the COVID-19 pandemic, where a lot of fake claims, were floating around, such as drinking hot water or cow's urine as a cure. that was circulated so widely and misled the public and, of course, endangered lives. Similarly, during the farmers' protest in 2021, during that protest as well, there were a lot of false narratives which were spread to label protesters as anti-nationals, using manipulated images and videos. So such instances demonstrate the power of misinformation and disinformation, right? So the manipulated images also included, a farmer holding a Pakistani flag. So, such instances demonstrate the power of misinformation and disinformation to polarize society, mislead citizens, and shape the political discourse. So, like Professor Hamad had spoken about, the best way to combat would be to strengthen fact-checking organizations, promote media literacy, we have been talking about it over the last two discussions as well, and regulate misleading digital content without infringing on press freedom. Political influence on media. In many countries, including India, we all know, right? A prominent, the political influence in media is definitely a growing concern. Certain news channels have been accused of favoring ruling parties. So all of you would have heard of Godi media, the term, right? Certain news channels have been accused of favoring ruling parties while downplaying dissenting voices. A prominent example, it's a little old, but a good one, is the Balkot airstrike coverage, where certain media outlets exaggerated nationalist narratives without verifying facts. Such biased reporting has led to concerns about a lot of neutrality, investigative depth, and independent journalism. In contrast, journalists who challenge political narratives have often faced legal actions. I'm talking about Siddiq Kapan and Ravish Kumar. Right? These are journalists who challenged political narratives, and they have faced legal action, harassment, or fund cuts. Corporate influence and paid news is another area of ethical concern. Many a times, corporate ownership of media presents another ethical dilemma. As business interests often dictate editorial decisions, large conglomerates often they own significant portions of new media, which can result in biased reporting. I'm sure you've heard that enough number of times. So I'm talking about, organizations, groups like Reliance, owning Network 18 Group, and the Adani, which acquired NDTV in 2022. So all of this have raised concerns about editorial independence. Way back in 2010, there was this paid news scandal involving former Maharashtra CM Ashok Chavan, revealed how politicians paid news organizations to publish favorable electoral coverage. So there was this commission, a two-man commission set by the PCI, which unraveled this particular scandal. So such cases exposes the conflict of interest, selective reporting, and the erosion of journalistic integrity. Media ethics in public relations and advertising. The ethics, of course, play a crucial role in these disciplines as well. They raise significant concerns, including deceptive practices, corporate propaganda, and misinformation. Ethical PR. Ethical PR demands transparency in messaging, responsible crisis communication, and fair representation to maintain public trust. Representation has been spoken about enough as well, but these things are absolutely important to maintain public trust and uphold industry integrity. Just to cite an example, the Radia scandal, in the corporate context, in the context of PR and ethics, is a very good example where leaked conversations exposed a PR professional's involvement in manipulating media narratives and political lobbying. This incident compromised journalistic integrity and highlighted the ethical pitfalls of unchecked PR influence. In advertising, surrogate promotions by liquor companies, right? We have been hearing about this for a long time, but now government has tightened laws relating to surrogate advertising and is imposing hefty fines and endorsement bans to curb this misleading practice. Similarly, another issue is that of paid news, where media outlets accept payments to present promotional content as editorial news, which continues to mislead audience. Of course, the ethical issue of that as well, the paid news. So, the rise of digital media is introduced further, which was spoken about by the professor, I forget her name, Professor Bahia. Earlier had discussed a lot about, the ethical concerns rising with the rise of digital media and, of course, the solutions. So things like fake social media engagement and bot-generated interactions, unauthorized data exploitations are increasingly being used by brands and PR professionals to manipulate public perceptions. These deceptive tactics create a false sense of popularity and credibility, so which emphasize the need for stricter ethical guidelines and training. Okay, privacy and media responsibility, the balance between public interest and private rights is another crucial ethical debate. Investigative journalism often conflicts with an individual's right to privacy. Here, the examples that you can think of you can relate to the Pegasus spyware scandal in 2021, and plenty of other examples are there. One example that I've put there is the Arushi Talwar case, where media speculation violated the privacy of the victim. The Pegasus spyware scandal, I don't know how much you're familiar with, but anyways, the allegations that government used spyware to monitor journalists and activists, that's what raised the concerns of the freedom of expression and privacy, and led to privacy violations. So, digital journalism, again, the problems such as clickbait journalism, deep fake technology, and algorithm-led or algorithm-driven misinformation is a huge problem. One good example can be Manoj Tiwari, the BJP leader. Manoj Tiwari's deepfake video during the 2020 Delhi elections. They had used the deepfake technology to create videos featuring him. In both these videos, Tiwari appeared to speak in Haryanavi and English, languages he hadn't originally used. The BJP disseminated these videos across approximately 5,800 WhatsApp groups to broaden their outreach. So this was one of the first instances of a political party employing deepfake technology for campaigning, raising significant ethical concerns about the potential for misinformation and manipulation in political communication. So the need of the hour is definitely implement better content moderation policies to curb misinformation while maintaining free. Okay, so ethics in entertainment media. I'm going to talk about the last one, which is here. I'm sure all of you have heard this guy, right? Ranveer Allahabadia and Samay Raina. Anybody who has not heard about this news? Anybody? Okay. If there was, then you must have been under a rock. Anyways, this particular scandal highlights the critical ethical concerns in digital content creation, particularly regarding responsible speech, platform accountability, and boundaries of free expression. While content creators have the right to express opinions freely, they also bear the ethical responsibility of ensuring that their content does not promote obscenity, degrade societal values, or offend public sensibilities. The episode in question, that particular episode in question, of course, was criticized for its vulgar and offensive nature, and as you have witnessed, sparked widespread backlash, raising concerns about the increasing trends of sensationalism and shock value content in the digital media. governments often have imposed regulations to curb misinformation, but there's a very thin line between regulation and media censorship. The example in case would be Twitter, now X, right? Versus the Indian government in 2021-22 was, that particular case was centered around Indian government's enforcement of the IT rules 2021, which required social media platforms to comply with content takedown request and appoint compliance officers in India. Twitter initially resisted, citing free speech and user privacy concerns, leading to tensions with the government, which warned that non-compliance would result in loss of its safe harbor protections under Section 79 of IT Act 2000. So while Twitter eventually complied, the conflict escalated when it challenged certain government takedown orders, arguing that they were excessive and politically motivated. In 2022, Twitter filed a lawsuit in Karnataka High Court, questioning the constitutional validity of the government's directives, while the government defended them as necessary for national security and combating misinformation. This particular case highlights the struggle between digital free speech, platform accountability, and government regulations, setting a significant precedent for technology government regulations in India. The IT Rules 2021, IT Intermediary Rules 2021, sought to hold social media platforms accountable for misinformation, but critics argued that they could be used to suppress dissent. So that's the concern, right? Fact-checking and media literacy. So strengthening fact-checking mechanism in this digital media environment, digital news, etc. So strengthening fact-checking mechanisms like alt news, boom live can help combat misinformation. Additionally, educating citizens, of course, again, all this was spoken about, and research conducted by Professor Bahia Omaz has also, revealed that these things are, effective in controlling controlling and curbing misinformation. So, educating citizens on media literacy can empower them to identify propaganda, bias, and fake news. Recovering trust in media requires a commitment to editorial independence, ensuring that journalism remains free from corporate, political, and government influence. Many media outlets face pressures from advertisers, political entities, and ownership structures that can compromise objective reporting. Encouraging autonomous newsroom decision-making and minimizing external interference can help maintain journalistic integrity. Additionally, stronger regulations against paid news are crucial, as practice of disguising advertisements as news misleads the public and erodes media credibility. Enforcing strict penalties and disclosure norms for sponsored content can prevent manipulation of news narratives and promote transparent, unbiased reporting. Furthermore, ethical training for journalists and media professionals is essential in an era of fake news, sensationalism, and digital misinformation. Regular training on fact-checking, responsible reporting, and media ethics can help journalists navigate complex issues while upholding public trust. Supporting independent investigative journalism is equally critical, as it plays a crucial role in exposing corruption, human rights violations, and corporate misconduct. Financial and legal backing for investigative reporters can ensure they operate without fear of intimidation or retaliation, fostering a media ecosystem that prioritizes truth, accountability, and public interest. By addressing these areas, media can reclaim its role as a reliable pillar of democracy and informed discourse. In conclusion, ethical journalism is essential for safeguarding democracy and ensuring public trust. The future of media ethics depends on balancing press freedom with responsible reporting, curbing misinformation, and promoting media literacy. Ultimately, ethical media practices must prioritize truth, accountability, fairness, and independence. As Walter Cronkite famously said, freedom of the press is not just important to democracy, it is democracy. The responsibility lies with journalists, media houses, policymakers, and audiences to uphold these values and ensure that media serve the public good. Thank you.
I would now like to call upon our faculty, Ms. Soumya ma'am, to felicitate Dr. N.C. Krishnapriya, who was the chairperson for yesterday's online session on media and AI.
I request Dr. Manjula Venkataraghavan to felicitate Ms. Sharmila Christie for chairing the session Media Ethics and Standards at yesterday's online session.